All right, welcome everybody to Wisdom Wednesday. It's been a couple weeks. I am back. Those of you who don't know me so well, my name is Nellie Meadow, and I've been leading the North Node Journeyists for last like about, I don't know, year and few months. And the group has really grown. I'm really, really excited. Have so many amazing people in our community. And today I have the pleasure to talk with my good friend Andrew Carter. And he has a job and he's pursuing a job that's super fascinating for me. And I know that we haven't heard anybody in this field. So I wanted to talk with Andrew today. And he is a life doula and world bridger. So I'm going to let him explain that a little bit more. And Andrew and I met up on another group starting to talk about astrology, then human design, then gene keys. And, we've stayed connected. So yeah, I was really excited that he was, available to do the conversation today. So Andrew, thank you for joining me. Um,
Hello,
and
thank you for
sharing
having
your wisdom
me.
with us. Yeah, so tell me about like your new role that you're pursuing. I think it's really fascinating.
It's actually death doula, but I'm turning it into life doula because I want to cater for I want to eventually do birth dueling as well. So doing the whole life cycle and focusing on the middle, and I think that's where I'm going to put like my astrology, my human design, the gene keys, just give people these tools just to find their own transition.
Right.
Yeah.
I like your spin on that because when people hear the word death, it's like it's such a hard concept. It's like people get very nervous. They don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. And like for me, I know personally, with my in-laws passing last year, I didn't know like what to expect, how it was going to go, and we had like a person who was helping. So not in formal name of a death doula, but like in that role here. And in the U.S., you don't always have that. You have this person that's granted from the hospital to help out. But I realized, they were so helpful to me, just like, talking to us about the whole process and how things were going to be. And I'm like, yeah, we do need that, like, because we don't know, we're not comfortable talking about death. And I think your spin of calling it the life doula and like the concept of
Mhm.
transitioning. So tell me more about it, and also World Bridger, because I heard that name and I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool. It reminds me of things like with ancestry. So tell me about
Yeah.
that and where that came from.
So Wellbridger, yeah, it's part of mine astrology. It's actually a funny story. Before I decided to do this course and to be a death doula, I had like, all right, yep, signed up, ready to go. The day after, I found mine astrology, and my sign, my kin is death, and so Wellbridger means death in mine mythology.
It's
So that's where
fascinating.
that comes from. Yeah.
So you have these traits, right? Like you said, based on your astrology that allow you to like hold space for somebody who's like in this tough time. So my question is, are you working with the family, or are you working with the person who's passing, or both? Like what's your role?
Yeah, so definitely both. Primarily, you're there for the one that is dying, but you're also there just to hold space for the family. Like you said, like lots of people, like it comes as a surprise. There's lots of conflict. It's just holding space for everyone to acknowledge and feel what they're feeling. Just being a soundboard. Yeah, giving them the tools of like what to expect with a death, like do you want to like be dropped out of a plane? Do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? What do you want done with your body? Like there's so many things, and unfortunately, we're having these talks too late. We're having these talks when there is someone dying. So it's so much more emotional. Whereas if we had these chats like around the dinner table when no one was dying, it'd be cool, fun. Yeah, cool.
Right. People know better. People don't want to talk about this because it's so uncomfortable. Even though we know that there's a beginning and an end, we don't want to talk about the end. We don't want to talk about the preparations and all of that. But then when it comes down to it, it is that stressful emotional time. And it's like you wish these conversations would have happened. So yeah, I agree with you. I know that when it happened, in our family, like I, discussed it with my boys because we knew a little bit in advance, not for sure exactly timing, but um, we started the conversation. I think that helps. It's not necessarily easy. And it's like you don't know if you're using the right words and, whether you're talking to adults, you're talking to children. But I think it's important no matter how you do it, that you're doing it, that you're opening the door to the conversation
Yeah.
So they know this is something it's not hush hush. This is something we need to talk about. This impacts our mental health and our well-being. And I think it's amazing that you do it. And I was going to ask you because I know you're a spiritual person. I know that you're like in tune with your guides and with your energy. So I was going to ask you, how does that help you in your role? Like, how does your spirituality help you as this life doula?
I think it gives me it empowers me, like I know I have it in me to hold such a huge amount of space for people and to really take it in and feel it through my heart, be on that journey, holding their hand while they go through this transformation, and that's any kind of transformation.
And it's tough too. And I know recently, like as I've come into the spiritual world, I've heard people use the word transition more. They don't use the word death, and they just talk about as a transition, especially those who like connect, who have like medium abilities. They know that they're going to be able to connect with their loved one just in a different way. So there's not this finality. And I think that's really beautiful because when we have this finality, that's why it's like so hard on us. But if we know we're still going to communicate with them, but it's not like in this physical realm, but we're still in communication, it's like, okay, that door is open. I'm just listening for messages in a different way. So it's not the same, of course, but there's something still there.
That's it. And like through life, we all go through all these mini deaths. Each mini death is like it's supposed to be the death of the ego, like coming down, finding the balance between what your ego wants and what your heart, what your soul wants. And so each time it's a transformation.
Yeah, you're right. And we deal with so much loss. That's the thing. So it's like we have a lot of loss, and like sometimes that loss compounds and we don't deal with that loss. And then, before you know it, it's like there's a whole lot there. And it's like we've dug ourselves in a hole because we avoided it, just compartmentalized our feelings. And then
Yeah.
I mean, I know I did it last year because with the two deaths and then my dog also passed, it was in 6 months. It was like one thing after another. And I just kept saying, I'm going to deal with it later. I'm going to deal with it later. There's just too much going on. I have to do the logistics. My Virgo rising was like, do the tasks, get things done, be
Yeah.
responsible, take care of everybody. But like I never dealt with it. And then every now and again, something would come up. And I was like, that's why I'm struggling with this because I never dealt with the loss. And, I made it through that moment. And my point was just like survival. And I think for a lot of people, it's like surviving the moment, especially if you have other loved ones here that you need to take care of. It's like you can't just give yourself, or you a lot of times we feel we can't give ourselves like that time for grieving even though we
Yeah.
need it. So how do you advise people, like how do you help somebody kind of like see the light that they shouldn't ignore like I did, and that you need to deal with it head on? So how do you help people like with that like realization, that process?
I think the most important thing is just learning to sit with those uncomfortable feelings. The more you sit with it, the more you find your way out the other side. That there's always light on the other side. It's always there. You've just got to find it. And sitting in those feelings, yeah, I always found like I find that helps me a lot. Is just sitting in it,
Brene Brown
talking to
talks
people.
about that. I don't know if you follow Brene Brown's work, but she mentioned something like that. And it wasn't for death, but it was a situation with her daughter, and she was having a tough time. And she like turned off the light, literally that light switch. And she's like, I'm going to like literally sit with you, like hold space and sit with you in the dark while you're feeling as you're feeling. And I don't have to talk, but I'm here. And I'm here. I think it's very similar. It's like sometimes we don't have to say the words. Like there's this like connection, and
Mm,
we're on that wavelength together. And I think just having somebody there, even if you don't talk, there's like this understanding. So I think, and I think you're very empathetic too. It's like you're able to like kind of feel like what they're feeling and know the right thing to say or do. And I think that's your role, right? Because not everybody knows
mm,
how to do it. Just because you have a family member that's going through something and that family member doesn't mean you're going to be so well equipped, for that role. So I
yeah.
think it's beautiful what you were able to do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Do you, and my question is this, so I know this is happening like, in this physical realm, like as people are passing. Do you also help people like any have you done anything like virtually, like any kind of conversations with people, or is it always just like in the physical presence of the person who's like transitioning?
So so far it's just like so I've just finished my studies. I haven't actually gone out there yet, but through my work in aged care, I was constantly around people dying. And yeah, just sitting with them really and just being there and holding their hand, like you said, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the virtual thing only because I know you're in Australia and like, a
Mm,
lot of us are all over the place. And sometimes it's like our connection is so powerful, even this way. We don't always have to be like in physical space. So I'm just like
yeah.
wondering in terms of your role with like family members, because they're the ones who are there picking up the pieces and they're all grieving. I'm just wondering, even for like virtual conversations, because there aren't so many doulas out there and there's
Mm,
people who are passing all the time every day. So I was just wondering, like, with our world so virtual, like if it offers you this opportunity with the family. I don't know if they talked about it.
yeah.
Just kind
I
of a
mean,
thought I had,
honestly, yeah, I never thought about that. It's a really good idea, and yeah, I'll look into that more.
Yeah, because we
It's
all
a
talk
good
with each
point.
other this way, and it's like sometimes it's like, yeah, when they're in the hospital, they're in physical presence, but then what about after? Because the after
Mm,
is like really when it gets hard because the person's
yeah,
gone.
yeah, definitely. That's when you need someone to talk to. Yeah.
Right, right, as you're going through it. So yeah, like it's definitely tough. So yeah, I think it's amazing. And I was like curious because I know we connected with astrology back months ago, and I know you do a lot with the human design, and I got you into gene keys. You started studying gene keys. So I'm curious, based on your lens with those, how does that show up in your charts? Like your current role, how does that tie in with any of those? With
Yeah.
maybe past lives or maybe something, I don't know, made me think of like eighth house, 12th house astrology. So like what in your chart helps you see that this is your path?
Okay, so definitely my Venus eighth house helps me. So I've also got Ceres, the asteroid, in my eighth house as well. And I think that one I read it on Astro Matrix and it literally said Death Doula. So I was like, yeah.
Ceres goes
Um,
with like house and home, like nurturing, right? It's like that energy, something like that. Okay. I was trying to remember because I don't
yeah,
remember all the asteroids. It's not one I've studied so well, but I remember it's come up. So yeah, that makes sense. And like the, eighth house is like there's a lot of different things, eighth house, but right, you're dealing with death is like one of the big topics and like this concept of transformation. So yeah, so that makes
mm,
sense. And having Venus like that loving way and that providing that like grounding and that stability for people. So yeah, so that
yeah.
makes sense, those two for sure. Okay, cool.
For my gene keys, I've got my 50 gate 55 evolution. I've got my life work 59, and I've got my pearl culture as 22.
Well, I know 22 and 55 are really powerful with that. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah,
Saw that. Like I took a little break from Gene Keys, but I recently looked at it again, and I know those two numbers pop up with like something big with love and like your role with it. So
yeah,
how did that guide you? So do you remember anything about like the 22, the 55, like the mission, the mission
yeah.
that you have to do?
So I know gate 55 is gate of spirit, and I know gate 22 is gate of grace.
Mhm.
Um, my gate 55 because it is also um linked with my gate 59. Sorry, I've got things all around, so I'm
Okay,
looking
that's
because
awesome.
it's with my gate 55. That's the gate of the sleeping phoenix that we're coming into with the new paradigm. So I feel very connected to them, and I do feel like the highs and the lows, and when I'm in those lows, I've really got to sit with those emotions and I have to sit in that pain to actually really know what it is that I feel.
So that way
Um,
you know what others feel, right? Because it's like I think for you
exactly,
to like really hold space and like have that like empathy, we have to have lived it. It's like it's really hard like if we haven't lived something to try to help somebody in that way because we're just like talking from a textbook, it's not real.
exactly.
Versus like
Yeah,
when you've actually gone through it, you have that wisdom. It's like you're wise, because of what you lived, you have that experience and you can share that. So yeah, that makes sense. That 55 is interesting. I'll have to take a look at that again. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think having like that background, that's like very deep, like knowing the astrology, knowing like the human design and gene keys, those are like amazing tools for you to like understand yourself and then also understand somebody else with what they're going
Mm.
through. Okay. So
I
that's
also forgot, another thing that helps me is I'm actually on my Pluto line. So in astrocartography, yeah, yeah. So I'm definitely very familiar with Pluto and death and transformation. Yeah,
right. Pluto, yeah, Pluto is like that's that planet that deals with death because it's like that Scorpio energy, right? So it's like, yeah,
yeah, very much
the
so.
powerful, it's the shadows, it's the things that we don't want to talk about that we need to put in the light. And I think that's, the beauty. I love Pluto because that's like one of my favorites.
Pluto's
Everybody gets
amazing.
into
Yeah,
the big three. I get into like Pluto and Saturn and the nodes because to me that's like, like the karmic connection and like the power and the transformation and like the growth, because it's easy
yeah,
to focus on the sun sign, right? But like that's not like the whole story. That's
yeah,
part of it. So yeah, and
exactly.
and I don't know if you can ever find out the astrology or any of the charts of the people who are passing, but if you know their birthday information, that could be like another tool. So I don't know if they talked about that in your program or not, but I know because you have that background, you can
Yeah,
always, throw that in because that gives you another way to better understand somebody's psychology and like their lens.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just try and cater to all. Like some people will want that, other people just like it's gonna vary for every single case. So like if I can just try and cater to as many people,
That's awesome. Well, I mean,
yeah,
I think you're doing great work. I think that's amazing, and it's so needed. And I know you're getting started in your program, and I think that's really cool. And so you'll keep us up to date on different things that are going on. If somebody wants to reach out to you for more information, like whether they want to pursue this path, or I know you're offering some spiritual guidance and you're going to be doing more coaching in the future, how can people best reach you and get a hold of you?
maybe just message me on Facebook
Okay.
till I've got something properly set up. Yeah, that's fine.
And I mean, you're on North Node Journeyists, and I don't know
Yeah,
when we met, but the group wasn't as big back then. I think we
it
met
was yeah, it was right at the start, kind of at the
yeah,
start.
I think
Yeah,
I had like 500 some people in the group, and we're over with like 2,100 people. I'm like, it's like I thought this morning, I'm like, wow, it's gone like fourfold, crazy, like in a few months.
yeah,
So yeah, I think we were talking right when I was like, getting into like the gene keys again, because I took a little break and now I'm on a little break again. Nature of like working with these different like spiritual systems. But yeah, I think that was maybe February, March, somewhere in there. So yeah,
mm,
that's cool. So yeah, I mean, as you're developing more, you can continue to share more with the group so we know more about like what you're doing. And again, like this is a role that I know some people will want to get into because it's
mm,
needed. People are
mm,
transitioning, and I think our view in the spiritual world is a little different than it used to be. And we know that we need this for people. It like helps their soul, as they're leaving this physical world and going into wherever they're going into. I know different people have
where are they
different
going?
beliefs on it, whatever you believe, but I believe the soul lives on, has a new experience. And so I think that really helps the soul, for the next life, what it's going. So awesome. Well, I
Absolutely, yeah.
appreciate you sharing today. I know it can be a sensitive topic, and I'm glad, we were able to hold space and talk about it. So
Mm,
thank you for being a part of the community and being so active and sharing your wisdom. So I know somebody today needed to hear this, and I know somebody's going to reach out to you. So
yeah.
thank you again. And actually, you know what? I almost forgot. I had the cards I wanted to pull, and I just wanted to share this. So I just
Ooh,
got the second
yes.
deck. I thought we could just talk about a card real quick. So this is
Yep.
Roses, Dust, and Ashes, and it's an oracle. It kind of doesn't come out well. It's so crazy how you and I chose the same background too. Your particular
Yeah.
background. I do my Wonder Woman one, and I was like, I'm just gonna do the space one today. And then you got on, and I was like,
Please.
oh my gosh, we have the same background. We are totally the same. All right. So I was gonna just pull a card, and I thought like this might be something kind of cool to do in your practice. It could be with a person or it could be with the family. So hold on. A card fell. Let me see. You know what? When a card falls, sometimes you wonder, is this card meant? So let me double check with my
Yeah,
friend.
all
See if this was
intuition.
an accident or not. I believe that there's usually no accidents, but I want to make sure it wasn't just me being careless when it fell. also. Okay, it likes this card, number 32, which is eternity. I don't know if you
Oh, eternity. I like that.
So yeah, this book has like these really long explanations, which is the nature of Oracle, and I don't always even get into reading them. But I was just
Mm.
curious for you, like if you were working with somebody and this card came up, like what does it signify for you? Like what would you say to somebody about this concept of eternity or any imagery that you see on the card? Because I know you do cards as well. So
Yeah, so
what does that evoke in you?
it's like that soul journey, isn't it? Like we're here like in human form, but once we leave, like our soul will move on. It's eternal. It keeps going.
I mean, that's literally what we were
On to
just saying right
next.
before. We were talking about the soul passing on, and that's
Yeah,
exactly like what we see here. It's really beautiful, like the intertwine. Like I also kind of see like we're all connected, right? We're all intertwined. Just
yeah,
the way that I see
absolutely.
this. So we're all entangled. So eternity, right? So the person doesn't leave. They leave in the physical world, but someday we meet up again. And I think a lot of people kind of hold that hope as
Mhm.
somebody is leaving. They know like I'll see that person again. It's just going to be a
Yeah,
brief time. So you live your life. You don't just give up your life here. So you live your life the best, and you know that your souls will reconnect. Like you'll meet them in the next lifetime. I believe very much in
exactly.
reincarnation and multiple lives and timelines and such. So we will meet up. And my karmic number is 44. Like it comes up, and I just looked at the time. It says 8:44. I'm like, yeah, fitting.
Yeah.
As
Eh.
the important things always happen on the 40th. Yeah, and for you, what time is it there for you?
8:44. Yep.
Oh, that's right, because yeah, that's right, because we're 12 hours apart. Yours is PM, mine is AM.
That's
Awesome.
it.
All right. Well, Andrew, thanks again for the conversation. It was really fitting. And yeah, so I don't know, we'll maybe do something again with those cards and have another talk. Excited to hear more. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. Wish
Yeah.
you well on the program and keep being active and keep sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
All
me.
right. Everybody
Have
have
a good
a good rest
day.
of your Wisdom Wednesday and be ready for Lionsgate tomorrow. It's going to be very, very exciting. Lots of energies already, I can feel.